So that means it's time to start. So welcome to those who are going to watch later. Thank you to those who are here in person and joining us on Zoom tonight, and all those who will be watching later. So let's have a word of prayer before we get started. Oh God, we pray for understanding hearts and minds and for refreshing of our spirits as we study tonight together. Pray in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, so we're able this year to continue the nature teacher series. It don't always work out. We've tried to do these nature teachers most years. For COVID, it was very hard to do one at all. But at least we did something. So we didn't do one that year. So wind was hard. Stars, I didn't really get off the ground with that one. But so we're back to it, and we've covered. This is based on the soul-centric developmental wheel, developed by Bill Plotkin, and discovered it in Belden Lane's book, and have been kind of going year by year with it since I discovered it. The wheel's divided into 4 sectors. If you've done these with us before, you remember 4 sectors, and representing 4 elements: air, fire, earth, water, and earth. Yeah, those 4. Try to get them in the right order. Each sector also represents a cardinal direction of east, south, west, and north. And also represented are the 4 seasons and 4 categories of human development accordingly: child, adolescent, adult, and elder. So we're in the adult sector. So that means you have to be on your adult behavior. Adult behavior. And with each sector, there are 3 different nature teachers featured. So we're in year 8 of these. We did do stuff with wind, and we did do stuff with stars, just not Lenten studies. So our studies so far have included the trees, birds, wind, fires, stars, and deserts. And in this sector, we did rivers last year and canyons this year. And I think canyons seem to be the head of the Lenten study department. If they are teachers, this would be the head of the department for the Lenten study, because it offers a particularly clear application to the Lenten themes and topics when you talk about canyons. Yeah. Doors on. But before we talk about canyons, we're looking and comparing weather forecasts, and it's going to be a little cooler tomorrow, a little bit warmer the next day, and back and forth, and 70s on Friday, and maybe snow on Sunday. So it's all bouncing around. But think about, maybe it wouldn't be too hard to imagine yourself on a beach, right? Think about the warmth. You could escape the cold. Or think about sitting by a waterfall or in the woods somewhere. Those are places that have certain energies or certain spirits about them. How do you feel beside an ocean? What physical sensations do you have?
It usually smells.
Smells. Not always
Not always pleasant.
Not always pleasant.
Like physical sensations, like the breeze, constant kind of breeze.
Yeah.
The tide coming in and out, the waves.
How does it make you feel?
How does it make me? That's
I think for me, it makes me feel like inspired, like in awe almost of like, I feel like I'm just such a small thing in this vast, vast world when I look out at the ocean.
Rudy said at peace.
Okay, that's a good word for it. Relaxing, rejuvenating, maybe. So there are certain, and that has to do with the ions, the negative charged ions there just help you relax. It's like after a rainstorm, all these free ions and the sunlight and the movement of the water So there's something about physical science to the feeling that you have of relaxing or rejuvenation when you're in those places. So that could be said to be maybe defined as being the spirit, it's the way I think of it. What spirit is what's the soul of this place? And it can be something that rejuvenates you. So for me, it's I get that feeling around ocean or on a beach, but I get it mostly in the woods. Um, so canyons seem to have their own kind of soul too. Okay, and it's pretty across the board. Whatever you read about canyons or see about canyons or myths or stories, novels that are set in canyons, they all try to create and sense the same kind of mood. Any idea what that would be? Been listening to sermons so far? Canyon energy is reflective. Okay. And the two main walls, if you will, of the canyon is thought, and memory. Okay, so it kind of helps you be reflective and concentrate and focus on something that maybe you wouldn't think about in another place. I'm not sure if it helped you find your keys or not.
No.
But it helped you think about things, and certainly it seems that the empty canyon is just filled with memories for anybody who walks in one. It's just a reflective kind of experience. So much so that there is a Nordic mythology. There's a god who has two ravens. One sits on each shoulder. Okay, and this one is named Hugin. Because he's about thought. And if that looks familiar, Lisa Jayberg is the artist. She actually had to sit in a painting. This painting was sitting on her mantle, and when they sent a picture of the canyon, it was below the mantle, and this was sitting over it. It said, "It's perfect. Does the raven come with it?" So she made a print of it and sent me the raven, and I've named him Hugin because he's one of the ravens that sits on the shoulder of the Nordic god. Um, so canyons bring you face to face with self-reflection and a connection to the universe and kind of your place in it. There's just when you look at it, you realize you're seeing a slice taken out of the earth and you're immersed in it. And you can walk through and like Thomas, put your hand on its side, and experience that, have that kind of feeling. So some have said that canyons cause self-reflection and connection to the universe, connection to God and to yourself. Call us to change our lives by emptying ourselves. We see that emptiness as kind of like a vacuum that sucks stuff out of us, a purging of the uh, interior of the soul. They call us to enter more deeply into the mystery of God and encounter more of God's fullness and steadfast love, which is the verse for our Sunday school. Time you consider the depths of God's steadfast love. So this makes for a more adequate spiritual map by which, more than an adequate map to navigate the Lenten journey, which has very similar focus and tasks. See how that works? Yeah. So we've had a quote from Belden Lane in the Ash Wednesday service. And so he says the canyons carry the soul into unfinished grief, into pain we've stifled, the secrets we've hidden, the depression we feared. We thrill at the idea of canyons as a test of courage, but as mirrors of the soul, they take us to places we don't want to go. And a lot of writing about canyons or that kind of fearful kind of thing. And some see that as a cutting and an emptiness that are being formed by loss and grief. And I think if that's certainly a part of it, but some people don't have that in their memory. You know, it doesn't necessarily take you to those places if they're not there. It doesn't mean you can't experience some shaping of your past and remember things and put the pieces together of what formed you. We'll talk about your story next week, the stories that the canyons tell. So don't necessarily be fearful or think that, I don't see anything negative in my past. It's all good. Okay, that could shape you too. There's good things that shape and build you. So that's kind of next week. Some people sense that the canyon is the real world. Whether it's on the river or hiking the rim to the rim. That's the real world, and the lives that they've known don't feel real or worthy like they were supposed to. They could hear the canyon sculptures whispering, "You must change your life." So I asked Diane to be ready to tell us about how she felt on the mesa when we went hiking in October.
I mean, he asked me that question about 5 minutes before we left to come here. It's not like he asked me to think about it and then
She needs to go back because she can't remember.
I know.
If you'd known he was gonna ask me that
I may
question.
have tried to remember. I would have taken notes or something. I'd have been prepared.
You knew there was gonna be a test, huh?
No, I thought we were just out enjoying a walk.
She was just coloring.
I was. I was. I mean, we had hiked. We had done a hike in the morning, and then we went back.
Mhm.
Then we went a shortcut to be able to get just to the top and look out onto the canyon. I don't know. I mean, we kind of sat in two different little spots, and I was coloring. I was, because I don't sit real well as far as just sitting and reflecting, but I was coloring, and I there's a breeze, there was a warmth.
Breeze,
Like-
putting it mildly.
Yeah, like
It was a gusting, steady
it was a
wind.
wind. Okay. But it was warm too.
It's warm.
It was warm, plus the wind. It was nice. And I don't know. I remember being very relaxed there, which is sometimes hard to achieve unless I'm just zoned out in some other way. But I don't tend to get relaxed by getting quiet. You know what I mean? Like, I can relax reading a book, I can relax watching a TV show, but to just like tell me to sit down and just reflect, and that will not relax me. That tends to make me, where's my phone, or do something. So I could have sat there all day, I think is how I felt.
Yeah,
I could have sat there all
That's
day.
what she said. I think I finally learned to sit.
Yeah.
I think I finally learned to sit, and I don't know how much the breeze, wind has to do with that, or the sun, but just or the soul of the place.
There's nothing else to do, which helps. It does. That's
No cell phone signal.
I mean, honestly, that does help when you're in nature. There isn't a million and one distractions, which is helpful to focus.
She finally learned to sit and liked it, and said that she could have sat there if she had a chair. She could have sat there for a while longer, but the rocks get a little hard. So, all right. So, hearing the messages of the canyon will be remembering. It'll be reflective of seeing things, seeing memories, having an understanding that kind of comes out of nowhere, just surfaces. that's been there all along, and you just kind of finally dig to it while you're still.
What did you feel while she was
What did
sitting?
I feel? I had about 10 pages of notes, including the title for the Lenten study and the session headings and just the notes of it. So it was very putting it all together. We'd hike. We were only there like 3 days, and we hiked 2 hikes each day. A longer one in the morning than usually after lunch, just a shorter one and different. Like we would hike up to the rim or something during the day, and a longer hike, and then we did like a riverbed hike one day. Then we did a kind of a floral botanical hike that was just still pretty much on the canyon floor. So no climbing. So yeah, so we were trying to decide whether to stay another night or not. And I told Diane if I could just have 2 hours to sit, we could leave that afternoon and not spend another night and be, that much later getting out the next morning. That's what we did. We sat for a couple of hours just so I could get some notes for the study.
So you get inspired.
Yes, yes, yes. And we'll have some more illustrations of that next week. See, I've already said all the stuff's coming up next week. How can you even think about not coming back? Am I right? You can't wait. You just say, stay 2 hours tonight. Do it
That's
tonight. Okay, so that's kind of the Lenten parallels. The scriptural parallel comes from Isaiah chapter 51, verses 1 to 3, and specifically it says the prophet Isaiah calls us to look to the rock from which we were hewn, and from the quarry from which you were dug. Okay, so that's our kind of scriptural mandate. Of course, Isaiah is talking to the Hebrews about remembering their spiritual heritage of Abraham and Sarah. Think about your connections. Think about where you come from, your ancestors. What layers are beneath you? So that's kind of the scriptural insight. Everybody with me on Zoom? Yeah, all right, thumbs up. All right. To remember who you are, what you're made of, and where you come from. The places and the people to whom you are connected are sacred. They connect you to your faith, fellowship, and community. They're unique and they are powerful symbols of your faith journey. So there's an online devotion I do each morning. It's probably a 7 or 8 week cycle and prayer cycles. And there's a song on one of them that actually came up this week. Couldn't remember what, you try to remember where it is on there and it's hard to find. But it came up this weekend. And it's a spiritual song and put to music by somebody else, but it's a spiritual, I believe, if I'm right. And one of the verses asks this question: what is the mud that made you? We think about being dust to dust. What is the mud that made you? What is your history? What's the layers? What is the mud that made you? I love the mud that made you. What is the mud that made you? So, how would you answer that? A pretest. Pretest. What's the mud that made you?
Makes me think of genealogy.
Yeah. Ancestors. Annette was telling me about some of her mud today. Your childhood and the chores you had. And,
all the chores.
mhm.
But if I were to answer that, my funny answer would be the new car. Because it's like looking at me.
Are you about to
I-
say what I think you're about
I
to say?
wasn't, oops. Yeah. And they were getting ready to go buy a new car when they found out they were pregnant with me, and then they couldn't afford the new car.
Oh.
So I wasn't supposed to be here. Mom had had some male issues and there was supposed to be no more children. And my sister, just older than me, was 8.5, 9 years older. So the joke was always, yeah, she was the new car. So the mark that made me was the new car. I don't know about the rest.
I was like, what are we about to learn?
What is the mark? So to kind of set the tone and get in the zone as we come to these, as we go through the Lenten season, it's okay to think about your past. And so I said that it wasn't required to have a harsh, cutting past, but be prepared if it is, and know that we can talk about that individually, separately, and have a support to process that. So what we'll find out next week in your story being told is that there's good and there's bad. There's light and there's darkness in every story. That's what makes it interesting, and that's what gives us the shape that we have become. But think about, kind of reflect on, your genealogy, your faith history. One of the things I looked at in getting some notes together and finding that Isaiah scripture was the homecoming service I did here, where I talked about the talismans, the purple shoes from my Sunday school teacher that I remembered, and different objects that were from different places and churches that I've served, and brick that I made a trip to get a load of bricks because we were a few bricks short of a load. So they sent me, like it was my fault, to get a load of bricks. So yeah, those things that kind of spend some time in reflecting those and let that be kind of a Lenten focus. And don't be afraid to go there. Because one, we're on an expedition together. Nobody goes single-handedly into something like this. So what is a common rock of our faith from which we've been hewn? It's the Judeo-Christian tradition. The entire biblical story unfolds. The whole biblical story of Hebrew and Christian faith unfolds within a vast network of canyons. That's where we came from. That's where the stories are. The geological terrain of the Old and New Testament is cut from north to south by the Great Rift Valley, formed long ago by a huge shift in tectonic plates. It runs from the seas of Galilee down through the Jordan River, the Dead Sea, and the Red Sea at Eliot. From the heights of either side of the Great Rift, deep wadis or seasonal streams that are gushing 1 minute and then maybe dry for seasons thereafter, or gorges. So these scars cut into the sides of the canyon walls, descend its slopes. Okay, so that's where we come from. It's said to be the setting of the Good Samaritan parable, the valley of the shadow of death, mentioned in 23rd Psalm, the Garden of Gethsemane, and the tombs of the dead. Okay. So that's the mud we're made of. As Christians, we have a common and shared spiritual rock. It's kind of a metaphor that the Apostle Paul reminds us that we share one calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. And this is a heritage, is our true rock from which we've all been hewn, and the true quarry from which we've all been dug. Okay. So we're all canyon dwellers. We've climbed out. And you've heard that quote before. Not sure we can survive, but there's something to explore, right? All right. Any questions over that introduction of how they fit? They tell us where we fit. It's a pretty good parallel to Lenten thoughts and focus and reflection. All right. So this is one of the main sources that I've used, and there are a couple of others, but Don Lago wrote this book, Canyon and Cosmos. And the subtitle is Searching for Human Identity in the Grand Canyon. So he has a lot of those same concepts, and this guy has literally lived in spurts, has literally lived years inside the Grand Canyon of geological expeditions, rafting expeditions, science work and stuff, floated the river, maps. One of the interesting things he worked on was they were trying to create an artificial flood and control the water volume being released into the canyon. And it was his job to spend, I think it was like a month or 2 months on a cliff, the edge of a cliff on the canyon wall, and watch people go through the rapids and see how the course of the rapids changed at different levels of water and the rate of increase or decreasing of the water. And he lived there and kept a journal, and a lot of that sounded like he was losing his mind of himself, but charted. That's the kind of experience he had with the canyon to get designated to do that. And I think he actually lives there now, somewhere in the canyon. So he says it's a universe. He talks about the Grand Canyon. He says a universe of rock and stillness, rock that sat unmoving underground for hundreds of millions of years. And he has a way to turn a phrase. It's kind of complicated to get used to his writing style, but I finally came to enjoy the book. You can see it's not a short book, and a lot of it's geology stuff that's over my head anyway. What was I saying?
It was geology stuff that was
Yeah.
over your
So
head.
the whole book only is 3 chapters.
Oh,
So it gets kind of bogged down trying to get through it. But so this is one of his phrases that I like. The canyon is the universe's ambassador on Earth. It's the tip of the rockberg. I like that. So if you want to see a very good depiction, it's a video, it's on YouTube. It's from the History Channel. There's the formation of the Grand Canyon, how Earth was made. And it's about 45 minutes long, but it's very repetitive. So if you don't catch it the first time, I'll tell you again 2 or 3 times. But it's very interesting. The garnet tells them, like at the bedrock, the garnet there's runs of garnet. By gauging that garnet, measuring that garnet, they can tell how deep the rock was on top of it. No, I'll take their word for it. But it took a lot of the dating and discovering theory that would be proven about the formation of the Grand Canyon wasn't for 100 years after the first expedition went through it, which was in 1869. So we're talking 1970s. They're still trying to figure out into the 80s of how it was formed exactly. But watch that video. It's very informative. You can find it if you don't have the History Channel. It's on YouTube. So canyons, we kind of have the basic idea from erosion and what happens when water moves over the land for a long time or cuts through rocks and dirt. The water flows, carries small pieces of rock, and they can pile up and change the shape of the canyon walls, or boulders break off of the side and roll down in and change the course of the river and form rapids. And it's an ongoing thing. Over many years, canyons develop into amazing structures that tell the story. There it is. They talk. You just look at the walls, they do talk. They tell the story of the Earth's past. So we're talking tonight about the story of creation that the canyons tell. So each rock's strata grew from bottom up, and life piling up fossils, the silt of the river settling, wind piling up sand. Seems like the wind never stops. On a mesa or and get out, just continual wind that has to do again with the electrical charges of the air and the atmosphere, and it's constant. Almost gives you a wind burn from sitting there for an hour or two. You have to have some kind of protection. So yeah, then tectonic forces and plates shifting and pushing things up, and I can't explain all that. I don't know too much about geology. I can kind of follow it when somebody else is talking about it, especially if they got a good picture or a video. But we're not going to expose my lack of knowledge about geology. But and the canyon that we went to in Texas, of course, is not nearly. It's a lot more user friendly than the Grand Canyon. I mean, Diane and I hiked from the floor to the rim every day. It's a 7 mile hike or something, but there and back. So the park itself is about 7 miles long and probably 4 or 5 miles wide. And we pretty much stayed near one rim, and we only did like half of it several days. So, but there you could see there's 3 layers, and the bottom layer of this canyon in the Halo Canyon, the bottom layer is about the same structure as the top, the rim of the Grand Canyon. So that's the difference. Instead of it being a mile deep, it's several hundred feet. What was it? 800-900 feet. So I don't know. Pretty steep when you start walking up it.
But nothing like
But nothing like the Grand Canyon. She's still trying to get her to go to the Grand Canyon. She's reluctant. We've been there, but she wouldn't let me hike at that time either. So anyway, so just think about the formation, but there you could definitely see there are 3 layers, and you could definitely identify them very easily and very clearly by color, and it was nice to walk just right along the wall and see the run of the limestone that goes through the veins. It was amazing. Were you amazed?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Where's my colors?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and next week I'll try to have some formations. We'll talk about spiritual formation. That sounds Lentinish, doesn't it? So we'll talk about our own spiritual formation. So I don't know where this comes from an article. As you stand by a canyon, you can't help but admire how nature made these amazing shapes over many years. Wind and water worked hard to carve the land. Each layer of rock has a story, colors and patterns that show the history of the earth. So canyons have also many side canyons, okay, where other rivers feed in or have fed in, or things wash out and go into the canyon and leave these side canyons. There's a little one even in Texas off of that small canyon. So when I get off track or have to tell a story that doesn't really have anything Lenten to do with it, that's just a side canyon. So this is exploring our first side canyon. Lago talks about boulders called stromatolites, okay? And they're huge boulders in the canyon on the floor. They were once just cities of bacteria. Okay, communities of many species of bacteria performing different tasks. It rose some 3 billion years ago. So 3 billion years ago, these rocks were just colonies of bacteria. And that was the dominant life form for 2.5 billion years. Okay. You imagine creation for just 2.5 billion years being colonies of bacteria, right? And so they filled the shorelines for hundreds of miles, and these stromatolites emerged. Now, Earth's atmosphere had no free oxygen at that time, only gases like sulfur and carbon dioxide. If you want to know how that all happened, there's a great video down at the planetarium about the your stardust, or something about stars. So that's where this all comes from. The exploding stars have all these elements. And so there's these sulfur and carbon dioxide gases given off. It was the blue-green algae and bacteria in the stromatolites that developed a photosynthesis capacity. Okay, and they devoted themselves to converting air into oxygen, one tiny bubble at a time. So you got this algae that started photosynthesizing, and then Miss Rachel would say, bubble, 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 pop. You know, so this took a very long time. By the era of these particular stromatolites, oxygen was still only a small portion of what it is today. Eventually, it would become the abundant fuel for animal life. Isn't that an interesting side canyon? Just creation and how it's kind of happening. The universe decided, well, the universe had worked for eons to create this glory, but it did not know this glory existed. The universe did not know. It didn't know. It's kind of like when you surprise yourself, you didn't know you had it in you, and all of a sudden you look back and wow, but they couldn't even look back yet. The universe, all of these algae and bubble pops, they didn't know the glory existed. The river reflected the sunset, but could not reflect on it. It just was a river, but it didn't know it. It just flowed. As canyons formed, they offered their sons new canvases on which to paint new styles. When the universe became us, we did not cease being the universe. The elements, the calcium from the fossils, it's just all very connected. The universe decided that its work was good. Being a creature was good, that the universe itself was good, and it appointed humans to be its celebrant. So you're to celebrate the universe and the beauty of creation. After eons of silence and ingratitude, the universe now looks to us to offer praise. You ever think about yourself as a priest when you go to the beach or into the woods? You're to offer the praise for the trees. See it, declare it to be holy and good. It's up to us to be the celebrants. I like that part.
Sounds a lot like Genesis.
Just a little bit slower motion.
A little bit.
A little bit slower motion.
Morning and evening.
Yeah. Evening and morning.
Yeah, right.
Evening first.
Right.
Everything comes out of the darkness. Evening and morning was the first day. That's why Hebrew days still start at sunset for holidays, but every day. Sabbath starts on Friday and sunset. All right. Side canyon.
Yep.
Side canyon. But yeah, that's exactly right. The canyon is a natural temple to the scientific creation story. Its river fingerprinted rock faces are the faces of the true creator gods. the canyon's geological strata and evolutionary fossils played an important role in disclosing the scientific creation story. Today, canyons stand ready like religious temples to make our creation story come to life, to make time and Earth's power and life's creativity more real and awe-inspiring. Okay, that's a lot of words. That's how you write long chapters from his book. Here it is more succinctly. Okay, from Christine Walters Paintner. Stones are an icon of grace. They reveal to me the face of the divine that endures and is ever patient with the world's unfolding. Okay. That's the Reader's Digest version of the earth being a cathedral. So, we're talking about being the celebrants of the universe and the universe being in us. Okay. I get it. That doesn't make any sense. And you have to read it several times and hear it several times, but you start seeing it over and over again when it's canyons, that you tied to the very same elements. And for some reason, the right elements bumped into one another to form and become human. But we're still the same creation. We're still a piece and have a place and come from the same creative work. It's interesting to see how all these other nature elements we've talked about kind of converge in the canyon. The ravens are there, for the birds. Certainly the stars, and we're all stardust. Remember that quote? That's there. The sky, fire, the volcanoes that erupt and flow into the river and harden. But so it's only when rock becomes alive that it felt it was a stranger. And no longer are cliffs in the cosmos to reassure it of its value. Now it's not enough just to be a river. As we become human, then we search for identity and meaning. We have to compare everything and find it relative. So then we develop creation stories to find human identity in the cosmos, to separate ourselves and think about if not how to master the rivers. We found out last year that wasn't really an easy trick. That wasn't too successful. But we define human identity and make sense of our lives and tell us how to live, how we're connected to the universe. So it's kind of like you're the universe that didn't know it. But now you do. You can look at it. So I'm going to read a real quick passage out of this and then another little article that says the same thing. So again, this guy's kind of out there. He spent a lot of time on the rocks, okay, in the sun and been beat by the rapids. Ever so often, I hear something knocking on my door, maybe stardust or the ocean. Say, says the stardust, that's a fine brain you've got there. Do you mind if we borrow it for a bit? You aren't making much use of it, only fogging it with daydreams and ego skits. We have a better purpose for it. The stardust flowed into me. Actually, it had been there all along. Through my curved eyes, through this condensation of the curved, clear blue atmosphere, the stars looked out and saw stars floating in the night. So the stardust sinks into his eye and looks out and sees the stars. Okay? I tell you, he might be on something. I don't know. But the night is sparkling and the star sees it sparkling. The stardust that snuck into his eyes and his brain sees it sparkling and recognized what they had been for so long. Even billions of years of stardom left only atomic memories of it, which did not get translated into animal memories. Now the stars were seeing their light, remembering their past, feeling their beauty, passing judgment on the billions of years of oblivious labor, and declared it to be good. Though through some humans declaring it to be God. Other beings borrowed my mind and saw themselves at last. One day I heard knocking on my door, and it was the universe. The universe itself knocking, the whole universe, claiming that it needed to borrow my brain. Which, of course, the universe created, so my brain really belonged to it. Sorry, I said, but I'm busy making plans to be busy. And besides, you're way too big to fit in here. On the contrary, said the universe, I've always been in there. So that's Don Lago. Here's an article by Belden Lane. It says the very same thing. Very same thing. It's the title of it. This was in Christian Century in December. The night the universe looked back at me. Okay, so he's a kind of a backpacker, but solo usually, hikes in primitive, purifying the water that he finds to drink and stuff like that for days on end. The night the universe looked back at me. He's old. Just saying. These rocks remind us that we share this planet and its history. No, that's not it. That's not it. What is it? There it is. Suddenly, so he's looking into the star. He's in a canyon. He's looking into the stars. Okay. Suddenly, I wondered if this were but a single instance of what happens over and over again throughout the universe. In any given moment, one body is inextricably drawn to another. One is always seeking out another for longing and for connection, enamored of what seems so different, so intriguing, so far. The world is fed by one desire awakening another. Rumi knew that the thirst in our souls is the attraction put out by the water itself. Cosmologist Brian Swimme writes, by pursuing your allurements, you help bind the universe together. The unity of the world rests on the pursuit of passion. So it's our job to see and celebrate creation for the first time, to realize what creation is and see it. And you get a great cross-sectional view in a canyon of the history that's there and the stories that build up. So these rocks remind us that we all share the planet and its history. When you look at the canyon, you feel the connection to the forces that change our environment. Makes you appreciate everything in nature works together. Putting a hand or a light on the face of hardness frozen in time. The shaping of life. Fossils once living, now and still one with creation. Okay. So that's it. And we've got a closing blessing from Christine Walters Painter. She starts out with this quote. Anybody got any questions before we close? Any comments? Any praise of creation? The story's told right there, and all kinds of interesting facts that you can just find by watching a video or reading a book about geology or whatever. But that's the first story. If the walls could talk, if we just look, it's all written out there in stone. Deep time is geological time. Time from the perspective of stone, the formation of mountains and planetary movements of tectonic plates. That's her quote to precede this blessing. A blessing of deep time. This blessing shimmers across the ages. From the ancestors of stone and stars, there is a sacred thread connecting us to the first moments of everything. Millions of years of unfolding, shaping, emerging, adapting. You are made from the embers of galaxies. Limestone holes remain of ancient seabeds, fossils embedded in stones beneath us. You are a part of this earth lineage. Your body is an ecosystem of ancestors, forming a web of ancient life. See your loved ones still speak in leaf and loam, in gills and granite and water and on uplift of wings. This blessing is an anchor in eternity, in the ancient wisdom arising from everything that is alive. Primordial fire pulsing through us, the origin of love. That's all I got for creation story. Next week is The Walls Could Talk. I would tell your story of life. Story of life. Good, bad, everything that shapes us. That'll be fun. We won't stone you.
Who knows?
All right. Thanks, folks.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.